So in this video, I'm going to show you how to take a solid piece of aluminium and turn it into a custom foot peg like this, and then make it even more custom. These rear pegs don't match the front ones, and I want them to match. So let's get a bit of aluminium, throw it in the lathe, and see if we can make a set similar to the front ones. So here's a couple of different knurlings that I've done with the tools that I do have, and the one at this end looks to be closest to what I'm after. I'll have to try and do a bit of practice runs to get it as good as I can, but that's about as good as I need. I think it's pretty close. So I gave it a bit of a degrease to get rid of all the oil and WD-40, and blew it off with some air, and as you can see, it didn't turn out too bad. It is a little bit different to the original one. The overall shape is pretty much the same, maybe a bit bigger in diameter just here, but overall it's pretty much the same. It's just the knurling which is different. I didn't have the same size knurl as what this was done with, so I did the best that I could. I still have a few more steps to do here. I have to flatten off the two sides, drill a hole, and then round the edge. Really cool trick that I just learned recently. If you're trying to drill into something circular like this and you want to find that perfect center line, rather than, being skew-if with it, if you're using like a milling machine or even a drill press, this is a really easy thing to do. Just get something that's machined, like what I'm using here is a tap from a tap and die set, because it's got a point on it. You want the point, and you want something really thin like this, like a ruler. You just put that under there. I'll get you nice and close so I can show you what I'm doing. All you need to do now is just put a little bit of light pressure on this ruler, and then once you've pretty much got pressure on it, you can roll the vise back and forth, as you can see, until it moves in that perfect spot. So you can eyeball it until you can actually just see if it's right where you need it. It is never going to be 100% perfect. You'll have to get like a proper dial gauge to get it perfect, but it's pretty damn close. And for what we're doing, it's close enough. You're never going to see the difference. So this little taillight isn't actually the correct shape for this slotted hole. So what I've done is I've got some sandpaper and I've sanded it around the edges just to sort of get it a little bit closer to that shape that I need. And I did cut the hole a little bit too small, deliberately, so that I could sand this down so that when I put it in, it would fit absolutely perfectly, as you can see there. It slides in and out perfectly, so all I'd need to do to keep that in there would be put a dab of some sort of, I guess, glue if I wanted to, or even wrapping something around the outside so that's like a friction fit, and the wires are always going to keep it in anyway. I just don't want it to be too tight, because if I ever need to replace this light or take it out for whatever reason, say for instance if I put it in and install it and get it all fitted up, then take it out so that I can get this anodized or cerakoted, I can easily do that. Little small piece I'm cutting at the moment, I could have done this on any other saw, but I just take any excuse I can get to use this milling machine to get a bit more practice, and that's why I'm doing it here. This is just to help me clamp it into the vise. Unfortunately, that piece of plastic that I'm using is actually interfering with me milling, and I can't go as far in as I need to, so I'm just having to cut that corner off. Have you ever created something and then go to create the second one to make it exactly the same as the first, and it just doesn't quite work out? I made this first foot peg a little while ago. Now I'm getting back to it a few weeks later, trying to remember exactly how I did it, because I'm having a few problems with the knurling. So this was me just doing some practice runs, but if you have a look at it from that angle there, it pretty much looks like the other one, until I put the other one up against it. As you can see, from this side is the same once I cut that off, But here, the knurling just doesn't marry up. I'm using the exact same knurling tool that I used originally. It's just, I don't know if I'm putting too much pressure on it, or I think I am. Started out okay just here, but as I continued, it just started to get real diamondy. Like the actual knurling got a lot bigger than this one here. And I want it exactly the same as this, so it looks like I'm gonna have to start all over. So I'm pretty happy with that. Looks like I've nailed it the second time round, and I just need to round the top or the end, this end, and then part it off. Okay, so now that this fits, I've discovered a bit of a problem, and it's where I'm going to run the wiring. Originally I was going to drill a hole through the bottom and track the wiring out and wherever I need to put it, but unfortunately, because of the bracket that holds this whole foot peg, I can't do that. It's going to interfere. So these are the old exhaust mounts. I need to chop them, cap them, and clean it up. I'm also going to clean up the top here because it's a little bit messy. I also need to cut a slot here for the wiring to come through the back, and also round the tops. So as you can see here, even with the pin in place, there's still a little bit of a gap there for the wires. I might cut a little bit more of a relief just at the top and center there, and that'll allow for the wires to not ever, get jammed up, even though they're really small wires. So, moment of truth, I guess. I'm probably going to be making a stainless steel pin to replace the OEM one. So at this point, they're not sitting perfectly vertical, as you can see, and that's not exactly great. So the reason for this is because of the wiring, because I've got the wiring going through the top section. So I actually put this pin on the bottom side of this, so therefore it's not in the center, so when it goes up, it's sitting over a little bit because it's hitting here. So, not sure what I'm gonna do. So the outstanding question here is how am I going to keep it in the upper position? What I've done here is I've machined the top side flat, which has allowed it to go perfectly vertical. And to keep it up there, I actually had a friend of mine, Willis, who came up with this idea, which was using little button magnets. I don't have the right size, these are a little bit too big, but I'm going to machine a little disc hole just here. So cutting a small little pocket right here to allow a magnet smaller than this to go in place so I can press fit it, and then it'll just touch this metal as it's in the upper position and keep it there for good until you need it. I did a video not that long ago showing 3 completely different ways of making foot pegs, and one of them was using bolts and washers, which actually turned out really cool. I really like it. I'll leave that video here for you to check out.